all of sorts of information. We're hearing that.
Watching the riots in LA. Let's have some fun. If anyone's watching, come join me. This is Karen Bass, the mayor, the communist, literally the Cuban communist agent, mayor of Los Angeles, telling everyone that the feds are so wrong for cracking down on this lawlessness. So let's have some fun. See what you think. This is just crazy. Craziness of the highest order. So, here, I'll put the sound back up.
If people get violent, if people break the law, they will be subject to arrest and they will be held accountable. It's as simple as that. So peaceful protest is what is needed. Peaceful protest is a part of our American tradition.
Right here. Mayor, last night the U.S. Attorney seemed resolute that he's ready to continue regardless of what's happened over the last 2 or 3 days. In your conversation with him, has there been any kind of attempted compromise or sort of kind of lowering the temperature, at least till things cool off locally if they want to continue, or are they just doing it regardless of how everyone else feels?
Well, I mean, I think what we see now is they're doing it regardless of how anyone else feels. My conversation with the U.S. Attorney, though, was not focused on that.
You're going to go, right?
Yeah, another question.
Oh, hi, Frank.
It appears that the LAPD is cooperating with ICE in this operation outside the Metropolitan Detention Center. They moved in, there was a peaceful protest. The LAPD moved the people back using flashbang and less than lethal munitions. Comment on that, because
Sure.
The LAPD is not supposed to be cooperating with ICE.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not sure that LAPD was involved with the flashbangs. But anyway, let me just say that what happened there is that when one
This
branch
woman is
of
something
law
else.
enforcement says they need
She's a
help,
real commie.
another branch of law enforcement is going to respond and is obligated to respond. And so,
So,
the minute that
this
protest
is
left
Fox
the federal
coverage
building, then
from
that's when
LA.
LAPD
Why?
were involved. So the cooperation that you're referring to, I believe, is the cooperation.
And I just figured out how to do a window, but I'm having trouble figuring out how to control this Windows volume. So I'm pretty good at this. So see what you think. Let me know. Get in the chat. Tell me what you want to see, what coverage.
I cannot tell you that. That's part of the problem, right? We do not know. I have heard a variety of days and weeks. I certainly hope that this is over. The last thing this city needs is civil unrest, and the last thing this city needs is civil unrest that's provoked.
Quick follow-up. So I've seen LAPD fire point-blank foam bullets, rubber bullets into the ground, but in some cases directly at protesters. Can you speak about what kind of orders are under in terms of handling people protesting?
I can't in terms of the specific orders that are being given by the chief or the other commanding officers.
So may we be speaking then to Chief Donald?
I'm going to speak to him in the next few minutes.
Oh, an interesting thing is Newsom, Gavin Newsom, the scummy mayor of California, has ordered the California National Guard troops that were federalized to go back to their bases. So somebody is not too bright and is going to get arrested, it looks like.
Always a handful of people that tend to be at the end and tend to hang around and might get into mischief and violence. But that's not the people who are putting on the protests. I tell you that to say that when those protests have been organized, they've been organized in a proper way. The problem is what happens at the end, and that's one thing that is difficult with crowd control, whether it is a political protest or whether it is a football game.
Did you say you talked to Tom Holman?
Yes, I did talk to Tom.
Yeah, this woman is not too bright.
He just listened. I mean, the main thing he said was he appreciated that there was a call for no violence. I'm not exactly sure what was expected, but, I was encouraging him not to deploy the National Guard. I knew that the order had been given. The president had signed the order to the governor that he was federalizing the National Guard, that 2,000 troops were going to be deployed, but that didn't mean that they would actually be deployed onto our streets. So my conversation with him.
What else did it mean? What an idiot. She's such a liar.
Obviously, that did not work.
Turn my mic down. She is such a liar. Where else were they going to be deployed to?
The police chief, the sheriff, and the governor.
Quickly, Mayor, talking about peaceful protests, we're hearing the noises outside as this crowd's getting closer and presumably more violent as they're coming up through the streets here. I know it's nice to talk about peaceful protests.
That's not peaceful, what was happening. It's not peaceful for people to be on the highways. It's not peaceful for people to throw rocks or bottles. That's not peaceful.
So then how do we reconcile the difference? Obviously, there's frustration with the Trump administration and the feds, but as LAPD and the Sheriff's Department try to distance themselves from the actions of these immigration actions and work being done, they're against authority in a lot of ways. They're standing outside City Hall, this is your office. It's not necessarily against you. How do you distance yourself but also kind of...
It's LA. The federal troops should just be used to protect the ICE facilities. This is really stupid. If they want to go on the freeway and LA doesn't want to protect itself, heck with them. As long as you're not attacking the ICE facilities and the personnel and the FBI agents and everything, it shouldn't be the feds' interest. You know, Californians voted for this crap.
Well, what I know right now is that the mission of the National Guard is to protect federal property and the federal building, which is why you have only seen them there. You have not seen them out in the community or anything like that. And just in terms of, to close, to wrap up.
Oh, Sherlock, you are so bright.
That, again,
so bright.
Our city has been through a lot since the beginning of the year. And now thinking that there is a large percentage of our city that is terrified, that is not going to know if they go to sleep tonight, and they go to work or they go to
terrified. You attack the police because you're terrified. That's what people do. You run up and attack the police because you're terrified. This woman's a freaking commie lunatic. A literal commie.
Angelenos. It doesn't matter where you came from or when you got here. But the most important thing right now is that our city be peaceful. And so protests and expressing your, fears, your beliefs is appropriate to do, but it is just not appropriate for there to be violence. And I don't want people to fall into the chaos that I believe is being created by the administration completely unnecessarily. Thank you very much.
If you're watching, please feel free to join the chat and let me know what you think. I thought this is just kind of fun to watch one of these streams. It's also a lot of fun to just practice how to do this. I have no idea. I'm just learning how to do this, and now I'm kind of obsessed with learning how to do live streaming. I'm not really good at it, but let's try. Right now, what I haven't figured out is how to control the sound that I'm hearing. I can control the general output to the stream, but right in my ears I have this browser source, and I cannot turn it down yet. I'll figure it out.
And lots of people gathering. We don't exactly know how long all of this is going to last for the evening, so our game plan here on Live Now is to stick with this story.
Burn it down. Go ahead, burn it down. It's your city. Burn it down.
Bringing you live images from these scenes for as long as we have these feeds coming into the newsroom. We want to make sure that we document every second of what's taking place. LA Mayor Bass saying violence and vandalizing property will not be tolerated. She says that she's been in touch with the federal government. So she says that she's
so ridiculous
that the National Guard ended up being deployed. She says it's not peaceful to be on the freeways. It's not peaceful to throw objects at officers. Getting raw audio sounds through most of these live feeds still at this point. We've got a few different angles that we're working with, including a couple of images from the ground, one from the sky. Mayor Bass underscoring that any protest needs to be peaceful, period. She says anytime there's violence,
If you look at it, there really isn't that many people that are doing these protests. And also, it's important to remember, it's really as big as LA is. This is really a tiny fraction. You have, maybe a few hundred to 1,000 on the freeway. That's one spot, but it's one spot. You have these spots near this downtown area, probably near the detention center. And so it's not really a lot of people actually. And it's really not a big part of the city. So the majority of the people in LA are just fine. They're able to get around, avoid these areas. It's just a few areas. And obviously, LA, if they wanted to, by themselves with the forces they have, they could put a stop to it. So it's kind of like they want all this chaos.
she says that's why you don't see them out and about in the city. So, just a few bullet points of what we learned from that press conference. We've been waiting for some time to hear from the mayor on what's been happening in her city. We've been with you the previous 2 nights, as well as all day today, covering protest to protest. Yesterday, a lot of our coverage was centered around the Compton area, Paramount, California. Today, we've been focusing on the 101 freeway. Another angle. What we will do is bring you any news updates as they come in. And while there are no major developments, we're just going to keep these feeds live on air, uninterrupted. Again, we want to make sure that we bring you an uninterrupted vantage point as to what exactly is going on down here. We will reiterate again that viewer discretion is advised. It's likely that as the evening goes on, there's either going to be signage, profanity. We don't know, again, whether or not we will get another update from LA officials tonight. I'd be curious to hear if we ever hear from any law enforcement officials at any point this evening. But getting that update in from Mayor Bass, again, a lot of what she was asked about was how the city feels about these protesters. She made it very clear that if people are breaking the law, they will be subject to arrest. She says peaceful protests are not taking over the freeways, are not throwing objects at officers. One thing we did notice, by the way, while Mayor Bass was talking,
Look at that commie.
is now the inclusion
Oh, he
of
thinks he's
these
really
officers
intimidating
on
people.
horseback.
Oh, they suck so
We've
much.
watched
This
the past
filth.
3 days as officers have used Bearcats, riot shields. We've watched the Los Angeles Sheriff's Office, LAPD, Border Patrol's police force has also been on hand for some of these protests. For the most part, what we've been watching in recent hours is what appears to be protesters blocking a busy intersection in Los Angeles. We've also been watching the 101 freeway. In fact, it was just about 45 minutes ago, it seems, and you know what? There's a car fire, just like we saw yesterday. This happened yesterday in the Compton area as well.
We got the first car fire already, so this is gonna be a wonderful night, isn't it? So, again, if you look at the camera, remember, LA, size-wise, is huge. So it really is a very tiny area when you look at it. And then they are also down onto the uh, uh, the 101, they said, freeway. So very few people really look at the car fire go. But it just looks so dramatic. So and just realize most people aren't affected by this. Most people in LA can get around. So it's just the commies being commies, and there's very few of them actually. If you look at the crowds and think of what if a city was totally enraged, what that would look like. Well, it's not it's not so bad you would see that would be only a few blocks deep, less than a few blocks, not even a block on these. We're taking up street corners and stuff. So, um, it's just ridiculous, but they're going to be what they are. And it looks like Bass and Muscum are digging themselves into deeper and deeper holes. Please join the chat. Let me know what you think.
Autonomous vehicle, the Waymo cars that
Yes, the
can pick up
Waymo car.
passengers. You can use them almost like an Uber,
So,
and they pick you up without a driver. That appears to be the two vehicles that we're looking
yep,
at right now.
that's what it is.
If they're not Waymos, they're something like a Waymo, just based off of some of that hardware, again, that we see at the very top of the car. We see some of those things spinning on top. Those are cameras, sensors, and the likes. We see some of these
Crazy.
protesters.
So they're burning down the automatic cars. So doesn't that just figure?
Law enforcement and national security experts in a moment. Look at how dangerous
Burn
that
it down.
is.
Look at
My
them burning
goodness.
it down. Crazy.
Some of what
What's the
appear very
point?
well could be gas or oil on the roadway. This is incredibly. Anybody who is in these areas, we already know these are dangerous areas to be in to begin with. Police have been very
Those are
clear
driverless
that
cars. They
they
didn't say the service, but like a Waymo, you see on top. So it looks like they've corralled a bunch of them, and it looks like they're gonna burn them down. So I see at least 4 of them. So, and for the company, insurance doesn't normally cover riots. So,
especially this one being zoomed in on right now. Oh my goodness. We do know that one news vehicle was damaged yesterday as a result of some of this activity as well. Remind everybody that we've got 2 different vantage points. In fact, we've actually got 3 vantage points at this. Yeah, so we've got 3 different vantage points. I'm working to pull all 3 of them up at the same time so that you can see everything that we can see. There we go. So these 3
we're county chanting. Oh boy, county chanting. Oh, so powerful.
Some of those officers with the headgear on, no doubt. I'm curious if that's LAPD. I mean, it looks like it could be LAPD.
Again, as long as it's LA burning itself down and burning your own neighborhoods down, this is not a federal concern. So if the National Guard are protecting the feds and protecting the ICE facilities, what they do in the rest of the town, it shouldn't be their concern. If Karen Bass wants them to let them burn down the city, won't get their police forces out in force. And trust me, they have plenty of force that they can bring to call and bear on these people. But the feds can just keep protecting the ICE facilities. That's all that matters in the end. And they can just act stupid, refuse to protect their citizens and the citizens' property.
California as well. Civil civil disturbance, civil unrest, protests, that is just something that happens on a pretty regular basis in Southern California. Certainly, we saw a lot of big protests during the George Floyd, all the protests surrounding George Floyd's death, and that was really big all over Southern California. So I would say that what I'm looking at here is that LAPD, CHP, which has not probably been mentioned enough, but they're also very much involved, and all the other jurisdictions, all the law enforcement entities in Southern California, civil disturbance. They're trained in how to work with unruly crowds like this. They have a lot of different tactics, techniques, procedures. One thing we did see during the BLM George Floyd related protests was that some of their skills or tactics had gotten a little rusty and they made some mistakes. My understanding is that they've been taking corrective action to get better at that. And frankly, it looks like they've been doing a fairly good job, although you see these what appear to be driverless cars set fire. They're pretty, and one thing about driverless cars is I don't think this was ever a programming parameter, but they don't know to get away from a protest, a violent protest or something. So they probably were like the only cars out there that drove right into where things were happening. And I'm sure for many of the protesters, they look at those cars, they're generally electric cars.
Are they?
They may be kind of indirectly protesting against President Trump by indirectly protesting against Elon Musk and his electric car Tesla. But again, a lot of times protesters don't think this through. They just lash out.
Al,
They are
vehicles burned
protesters.
on
This
the
is
screen
rioting, you
of the
dumbass.
freeway that was taken
This
over
is
earlier today.
rioting. This
You
is
and I were
not
texting a little bit
protesting.
earlier today.
Oh, they suck so much. California, in their news and everything, sucks so much. It's rioting, not protesting.
Freeway, can you describe to us what we've been seeing earlier today as we continue to watch these live images unfold in Los Angeles?
Sure. What you're seeing is, first off, they want to avoid any use of lethal force. So they have a variety of non-lethal things, things you've seen, flashbangs, which have to be deployed in a certain way to avoid physical injury. Things like pepper spray, tear gas can be employed. There's some other things that they have that they can use. But what they will often do is they will physically guide the protesters to another area. Now, in the case of these protesters, originally, as I understand it, they were at the courthouse,
Rioters, not protesters.
and
Rioters.
what happened was LAPD had kind of forced them away from that building. That, by the way, is where those federalized National Guard troops are set up. They are actually providing security to federal property, which is something I talked about in the air earlier today on Live Now, that they are actually being used as a security force, and that is a federal to federal support role for those National Guard troops who are in a federal status. They're like federal troops, like any other federal troops right now. Well, LAPD did not want the protesters coming in direct contact with the National Guard troops, and there's a lot of good reasons why they'd want to avoid that. So they moved them out. What happened was that the protest, it's very difficult sometimes to move these protesters where you want. They managed to work their way onto the freeway, which is very close to that courthouse, and they got down the freeway. When they got on the freeway, it's not just LAPD, but also California Highway Patrol, CHP. They are the state's law enforcement police, if you will, for the whole state. That's what the state has. And they get trained in civil disturbance, civil unrest training, how to do crowd control, things like this. So they also were out there to provide a forced presence. And they basically set up a skirmishers line, cordoned off and surrounded the protesters and kind of physically.
These people are nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
And into what looks like an
And again, the
on-ramp
use of
into an on-ramp onto the
protesters. These are
back up into the city
rioters.
streets of Los Angeles.
You know, it's
And
it's
this is
just
all done
sad
under
that they
unified
have
command.
to
I'm not quite
lie
sure. I
to
would
you.
imagine that
And on the news
LAPD
here, they have to lie to you. This is
kind of that
rioting.
unified command,
This is
although
not
I'm not quite
protesting.
sure it could be LAPD
Oh, nice commie came over and took their picture. Oh, it took a really be able to use that picture.
Now they're dealing with them on the streets of Los Angeles. Although my understanding is they're still saying nobody could drive down the 101 freeway. And as you know from downtown LA, we've got 2 or 3 freeways that are major freeways, actually 4 major freeways that all intersect in a very close area, all within easy walking distance of where these protesters are. So they're very concerned that the protesters don't be not blocking off these major arteries in Southern California.
So Hal, let's listen into the natural sound out here. We've been seeing, I saw at least one blast that came from this vehicle. This is an electric vehicle, presumably. I can only think of the materials inside the car, like a battery that may be on fire, being released into the air, and that's only one side story compared to the larger thing that we've been watching today. Hal, stick with us for a moment. I'm going to pull up the audio on the scene. I want to listen into the raw sounds. Looks like we've got 2 car fires now. Let's listen into this. Let's talk on the other side.
Whoa, this is just nuts. If you like, join in the chat and let me know what you think about what's happening.
Not to mention the obvious fact that there's a burning vehicle in front of everybody here, but police have not been shy about saying that less than lethal rounds may be used if you choose to go out to one of these protests. They have declared this an unlawful assembly, so there's an element of risk being taken by the folks that are participating in these.
You know, what's interesting is if you look at this, if anyone is thinking they should go down to these protests, I would say stay away, because the protesters, and it's not all of them, but some of them have clearly crossed the line. It's no longer a, quote, peaceful protest, which means it's no longer constitutionally protected. Once you start destroying property or you start injuring people, in this case, destroying property, but once a crowd, and as you know...
Dumbass, it's called rioting. Say the word. Why is this guy so afraid to say the word rioting? This is a riot. This isn't crossing the line. This is rioting.
Exponentially. So when you see something like this, technically speaking, that's no longer a protest. That actually has moved into being a riot by definition. Right?
He said it. He said riot. Yay. Riot. He could say the word.
True, but they have caused damage to that vehicle or multiple vehicles, and that means a crowd. This particular situation has now shifted from a legal standpoint. So I would say stay away from that. Now, what that means also to law enforcement is once they see that shift in what the crowd's doing from peaceful to non-peaceful behavior, they're more inclined to employ some of those non-lethal capabilities that we discussed earlier.
Hal, we have a press release in from U.S. Northcom. They say, by the direction of Secretary of Defense Hegseth and in coordination with the U.S. Northern Command, approximately 2,000 California Army National Guard soldiers have been placed under federal command and control in a Title X status to support the protection of federal personnel and federal property in the greater LA area. This was a question that we had yesterday, and it's only become a bigger talker as the day has progressed today, Hal. Have you heard of this idea before of National Guard soldiers? These are California National Guard soldiers, in this case, being placed under federal command and control. Is this something you've heard of before?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is what I used to do. When I was in uniform, I used to work with civil military support operations or defense support of civil authorities. And that is a status you can put.
Wow, I figured it out. Oh, wow. I finally figured out how to control the sound. I'm sorry, I'm not too bright, but I got a slider now. So I can also shut it up whenever. Okay, good. 'Cause I was wondering, if I started doing several of these streams all at once, because I could add window after window, how I would control the sound. And now I know.
My recollection is they are from a unit that's
Give me a
headquartered
few
in
days, I'll
Los
figure it out
Angeles.
eventually.
Interestingly, many of the members of that unit
So-
may very well be law enforcement officers like LAPD, LA County Sheriff's deputies, could be CHP, who prior to this were
The man here finally said riot. So I'm so happy. He finally said riot. It was a protest this, protest that. He finally said the word riot.
ICE
Yay!
in enforcing federal immigration law. So that is a little bit ironic that would fall to a number of them. Not, I wouldn't say all of them, but a number of them would fall into that status because that's what they do in their civilian jobs. Now, they have been brought into federal status, what's called Title 10 authority. That means they're federal troops.
Please join the chat if you like and say what you're thinking. It's let's see. There's still about an hour and a half of daylight at least. So this is crazy. What you're seeing now is they've got several driverless cars. It looks like 3 now, and they have about 4. I think they have about 5 of them captured there. These are driverless cars like Waymo, and they're setting them on fire. So, like somebody said, they weren't bright enough. These driverless cars weren't bright enough to avoid the riot going on. And he drove right into it. So maybe this is a sign that we don't need to worry about our robot overlords yet. Maybe in a couple of years they'll figure out riots are bad. Stay away from riots. Don't get burned out.
Lost control of the situation. This came up in Hurricane Katrina, and President Bush decided not to declare the Insurrection Act. You know, he was a GOP president. You had a Democratic governor and mayor of New Orleans, and he decided that for basically the political optics did not look good. It looked like a federal takeover of that city and that state. So he held off on that. Now they're somewhat limited, and that's where you hear the mission that they're talking about now. One thing that federal troops can do is they can be sent in to protect federal property and to protect federal personnel, and that's what they're doing. And I kind of thought that's what they were going to do. That's the easiest route to go. And so you see them guarding
Damn
federal
Sherlock.
buildings, and you may see them on the streets providing security for ICE personnel while they conduct.
In other words, the federal troops are there to protect ICE and federal buildings. They are not there to stop the stupid Angelinos, well actually the illegals, from burning the city down. So they could do this all night, and this is the responsibility of Gavin Newsom and Bass. Ooh, did you see that? Did you see that? Oh, I'm sure that's a lithium battery just exploding.
All the time. Oh, they declared martial law. There is nothing under federal law that says you declare martial law. The only time I know they tried to do that was in World War II in Hawaii after Pearl Harbor. And after a series of months, they said, we don't really have a way to declare martial law. So they basically came up with some sort of arrangement with the state in terms of how they did security stuff. But so they're not going to see a martial law thing, but you could potentially, if this thing really got big, you could potentially see something where federal troops are actually in contact with citizens on the street. That's possible, but they're not being used in that role right now. I just want to clarify that. And oh, by the way, I should also mention, if you go to the riots in '92, Pete Wilson actually requested troops, and he actually asked that they get federalized. The value for the state in having them federalized is that the federal government pays for the National Guard troops, not the state. It's not state active duty, so they don't have to use state funds. The problem they had, and one of the a former National Guard 2-star general that I've worked with closely for years said, literally, we went from doing 94 missions under state authority to about 4 missions. And that was a problem, is if they're under state control, which means they're state funded, if they're put on state active duty, they could actually go out there under state law and do law enforcement. That's possible. But once they're under federal authority, they can't do law enforcement. They can support protect federal law enforcement authorities doing law enforcement, but they can't do it themselves. And I would point back to the early 60s in Alabama when U.S. Marshals were escorting. This was when they desegregated the University of Alabama. U.S. Marshals were escorting African American students onto the campus, and Governor George Wallace, a staunch segregationist, called up the National Guard under state authority, and we're using them
Commies
to
are so
block
creepy looking,
the
aren't
U.S.
they?
Marshals and those
They
students
even
from getting
creep
onto
me out.
campus.
And
And
I'm
then President
undead.
Kennedy turned around and federalized the National Guard troops that were there blocking them.
Ah,
And literally, the general in
damn.
charge of the National Guard
Nothing's
troops had
worse
to
than a
turn to the governor
commie.
and say, "Sir,
Nothing.
I no longer work for you. I'm now in federal status." And the federal troops were stood down, and the students and the marshals got onto the
Blah, 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 blah. I don't know. This guy.
We thank you for joining us.
Okay. Well, we're getting a history of federal troops and rising.
We're going to continue talking you through some of the live images that we've been watching on screen. Emmerich in the room here just asked a pretty good question.
Oh, you can imagine, like, Fox in LA here. They're keeping this alive. They've been running it all day. And now the GC part comes at night when they're gonna go crazy. And, normally no one's watching them anymore. So, this is like a bonanza for them.
That was a city erupting. And in that situation, there was serious thought of the president declaring the Insurrection Act in that one, just because of what happened. There were parts of the city that were literally out of control. There was no way that they could do that. The other problem was, and I'm going to just say, local law enforcement underestimated the situation. They deployed badly. Their threat assessment was poor in that one. This one, I think they got a pretty good handle on. Yeah, there's a lot of people on the streets. You got, as we like to say, a few knuckleheads is the term we use, that will go out there and do property damage and stuff like that. But I'm not seeing the sort of mass violence I saw back in '92. And actually, it kind of makes sense in the short run. Bringing federal troops in to provide that really strong security presence at federal buildings, at federal property, and in consideration that this is a federal law enforcement mission, that's one of those things that actually makes a lot of sense, is it deters potentially attacking those properties. And it could incite the crowd. On the other hand, it could say, I don't know if we want to mess with those guys. And a lot of times crowds will quickly recognize that they need to go protest somewhere else. And I've seen that done. I've actually been on the streets with law enforcement when there's crowds like this. And there's a variety of techniques to influence the crowd to go another direction and not do things they were thinking about doing. And LAPD and LA County Sheriff's has a lot of experience doing this.
Al, one other thing that we're learning is that approximately 500 Marines from 2nd Battalion, the 7th Marines at 29 Palms, California, are in a prepared to deploy status should they be necessary to augment and support the DoD's protection of federal property and personnel effects. That's a statement from CENTCOM that was put out. So they say approximately 500 Marines are in a prepared to deploy status. For those who don't watch Live Now regularly, Hal, who's on the line right now, is a retired Marine intelligence officer. Hal, what role could 500 Marines play in something like this? And do you have any experience when you were in the Marines with any subject matter like this?
Well, yes, I do. I was actually at the center of mobilizing 500 Marines to do a civil military support mission in Southern California. That was fighting wildfires. And as I finished off my career, I actually worked under U.S. Northern Command, which is the command that controls the active duty forces in the LA area right now. And I was obviously, as the senior Marine liaison officer that was
Yep,
in
they're
the area,
turning this car down
I was
now.
coordinating with the Marine Corps side of this to bring in 500.
Again, this is another driverless car. So at least 4 out of 5, or unless this is a replay. But it looks like they got 4 out of 5 burning now.
I also served in 7th Marine for years, so I'm very familiar with that.
Smart robo taxi drives towards the riot. You can't make this stuff up.
They're doing civil disturbance training. They're doing a lot of things they don't normally
Well,
do
look at that.
to get ready for this. And they're getting, and it's a
Look
prepared
at that.
deploy order, which means they're not deploying, but they're doing all the workup. They're getting all the gear. They're getting all
And
the stuff. They're doing all the inspections.
there's no police presence to stop these people.
I'm sure there's a number of lawyers that are coming in and briefing them on what they can and can't do in this status.
You know, I almost cut you off there for a moment. I couldn't help but react to some of the explosions that we're seeing on the screen in real time. Again, these are Waymo vehicles. These are autonomous vehicles that they're only
So it is
available in
Waymo.
a select amount of cities at this point. These are not widely used, but they are driverless cars, and it appears that two of them at least,
Poor selection if he chose LA.
have been set ablaze. These protesters.
We're the select city. Yeah, the ones where the riots are happening.
Obviously, the same exact
What a
vantage
great
point,
does this, Mama?
or I should say, the same exact scene from a different vantage point. Now looking at it.
Oh no!
All of these images, by the way, are in downtown Los Angeles. So let's make that clear. Most of what we've been watching was today on the 101 freeway. Now we're more situated on surface streets in downtown LA. You see some of these protest signs. Hal, when we're talking about a dangerous scene like the one we're looking at right now, where we see these intermittent blasts happening, how do law enforcement begin to
What
tackle
law
a
enforcement?
situation like this? You got to deal with protesters, and then you got to deal with some active fires. Where do they begin?
Well, they're going to try and disperse them. They're going to try and get the crowd dispersed into separate elements.
Look, here's
so
this
they're easier to
knucklehead again.
handle, and also
They
to,
aren't doing
contain the
anything
potential
about
violence
this
that the crowd,
situation.
could
Can't
actually
you
do.
see for yourself?
What you're seeing with these vehicles is those are electric vehicles. Those are lithium-ion batteries. As you may know, lithium-ion batteries, when they catch fire, they burn extremely hot. And actually, the fire department sometimes is challenged putting them out because they burn so hot so long. Ironically, there's a ship full of electric cars off the coast of Alaska right now that the whole ship's on fire, and they're not sure if they're going to be.
Well, you can't pour water on a lithium battery fire at over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The water disassociates into hydrogen and oxygen, and that's where you can get a bigger explosion.
They're going to burn
So,
for a long time. Again, I don't think the protesters thought that through, but I do believe that that's what's happening. By the way, one of the things I'd like to point out.
Science Girl Vampire, yay!
2022, and we said this back in 2020 with the protests there too.
What do you think? What are you thinking?
A lot of images. And all of those individuals out there that are doing acts of property damage or violence are being killed. And there's a lot of different ways they can put together who they are. I'm not going to get all the details on that. But you may see people right now doing things. You go, why don't they go in and arrest them right now? Well, if you remember the 2020 protests, there was a lot of looting going on. They were hitting stores and stuff, taking everything, and everybody said, why are they standing by and letting this happen? And it was basically picking time and place. They had ways to identify who they were, and in the days and weeks afterwards, law enforcement came to their homes and knocked on the door and basically took possession of what they stole and put them and took them into custody. And so there are a lot of ways they can do this. Again, I would say if anyone in Southern California thinks that they want to join these violent protests, you may go down there.
No one's going to stop you, apparently. So, no one's going to stop you at all, it looks like. LA cops aren't going to do crap to you. Look at this.
That's modern policing. That's kind of how it works.
Al, why are we seeing horseback officers? What can they do that other officers can't?
They're great for crowd
They
control.
kick people in the head with the horses. That's what they could do.
They've been used in Southern California with LAPD for crowd control and LA Sheriffs with crowd control. They sit up high so you can look down on the crowd. Also, they have a very intimidating effect on a crowd. That big horse sitting up high like that, nobody wants to get close to it because they're not quite sure what the horse will do. So when you put when you put law enforcement on horseback in a crowd situation, the crowd becomes more compliant they tend to move where they got to go. The other thing too is if they try to run and that officer wants to chase them down, that officer's on horseback and can move a lot faster than that person can run. And so there's just a lot of good reasons, and that's just standard SOP, is to use law enforcement on horseback in these crowd situations because they just work so well from an operational
Yeah,
and
and
a
Tifa is
psychological
really
standpoint.
polite to horses. Oh,
So,
it's well known.
I'm from Southern
Yeah,
California.
so
You
intimidated by
live
them.
in Southern California. You and I know the answer to this question, and Angelinos know the answer to this question. I'm going to ask
More
it anyways so I can
Phil.
get the answer in your
Hello,
words
Johnny
and
Phil.
hopefully lend some context to our
Phil taking
national and
pictures of the
international audience.
criminality.
Why is the
Oh,
topic of ICE, of immigration, of some
more
of
Johnny
the
Phils.
immigration enforcement operations that we've been seeing in Southern California, why is this such a passionate subject for Angelinos?
In Los Angeles, last time I checked, 34% of the population was not born in the United States. It is an extremely dense concentration of immigrants. They're not all illegal immigrants. Most of them are legal immigrants. But there is a gravitation point for a lot of illegal immigration coming across the southwest border. Always has been. Southern California always has been. So when they're doing this, there are a lot of people, a lot of residents of Los Angeles and the Southern California area that are obviously upset. Probably more upset. I think the thing that really upsets them is with the current federal situation, if they believe that they're illegal immigrants, they're not getting due process in the courts. And so that's some of the protests going on now. But I would say you and I come from Southern
It's a
California.
bunch of crap.
It doesn't take a lot.
That's a bunch of crap.
A number of people agitated to go out and protest on the streets. We see that all the time. And as far as
I wonder how many people are taking orders from both the Democrats and their handlers, and then also all of the people that are in the cartels in Mexico. You don't think that they're interested in causing some chaos in the U.S. right now? That there's cartels that are on their little cell phones, maybe talking to their cartel bosses, and make sure to make a stink because they want to go back to the way things were. You know damn well they are. So
that are waiting to get hired to do work. And a number of those day laborers often are not here legally. So ICE went in there and they swooped in on the parking lot and it kind of set things in motion. And where you saw the protests initially in Los Angeles, in Paramount, South Los Angeles, Compton, South Los Angeles, were areas of a concentration of immigrants from Latin America. Many of them were illegal immigrants, and it kind of just set things ablaze, if you will, in terms of the protests. And I'm not saying by any means that that 34% represents illegal immigration. Do not get confused. It's just that they were not born in the U.S. Is from what I understand. But
maybe illegals doing criminality is nothing new.
You would see something like this. I would say probably more illegal
do you want some more? Then bring even more into California, and you can maybe make these riots even bigger in the future. So, yeah, there's always excuses for the criminality.
National security analyst and retired Marine intelligence officer Hal Kemper. He's been joining us to lend some context to the live images that we've been watching develop all day in Southern California. One thing that LA Mayor Karen Bass said moments ago, Hal, is that the National Guard's purpose is to protect federal buildings. This is something you alluded to as well earlier. She says that's why you don't see them out and about in the city. Is there a point at which it could get to a point where we do see them out and about and not protecting just federal buildings, but could their duties expand eventually?
They could.
Why?
Right now, and this is a federal to
Who
federal
cares?
thing. And of course, for political leaders like
It's
the mayor
like
of
a
Los
bird
Angeles
crapping in its
and
nest. Who
for the
cares?
governor,
Let them burn it down.
normally with
It's not the
military
federal
support
government's
or defense
business.
support of civil authorities, there's a process where they initiate a request that goes up to Washington, D.C., and then the decision's made through a thing called the Joint, it's for DSCA, it's an operational thing in the Pentagon. And they make a decision that goes back to U.S. Northern Command, and they'll issue operations orders, if you will, for forces to go in and do something. That's the normal request process. That's what you see in natural disasters and fires and stuff like that. This is different. This is the President of the United States ordering these troops and federalizing National Guard troops to protect federal personnel and federal property. That completely cuts out the mayor, the governor, or any of the mayors and the governor from this entire process. So they're standing on the side watching this happen. And of course, they're looking at the optics and they're saying, oh my gosh, we got military troops on the streets. That's going to inflame the crowds. And that's certainly what they've been saying. However, I would point out historically, federal troops have been used in this role many times. If you go back to the 1920s, there was a slew of robberies of postal authorities, trains, trucks, everything were getting robbed on a regular basis. And they actually called in the military. They actually sent in the Marines, if you will, to basically provide security force for the U.S. Post Office. Theoretically, any federal property in Southern California, whether it's a recruiting station, a post office, a social security
Can't
office,
concern about my postal
you
service
name it, federal
anymore.
courts, whatever,
Rarely
any
ever
federal
use it.
property in Southern California could
Times have
potentially
changed,
see
haven't
federal
they?
troops there protecting that property.
Once the postal
That is
service
within the
was
scope of what they could
such a
potentially
big
do
thing, so
if they think
important.
it's necessary. But I would point out, when you're talking about 2,000 National Guard troops, I know that sounds like a lot. 500 Marines coming in, no, it sounds like a lot. But you know as well as I do just how big Los Angeles County is, just how big Los
Yeah, and
Angeles
again,
is.
this is really a
And
tiny
this is
area.
where
It really
those
isn't a
troops
big
come in
area.
first. And
So,
we still need a lot more troops to
um,
provide really an ample
just watching these
security force.
videos make you think
I
that
should also
everything's
point
so
out, though, in the
chaotic.
background,
But it's really
and I'm sure
just
somebody
a
will bring this up at some point,
small
we're
part of a
discontinuing a law that
city
we have
block.
military support. It's
And,
called Oxycontin.
and,
That's the one that
you know,
prohibits federal troops from engaging in law
I
enforcement.
wouldn't be surprised
This
it's
is
not even
called
1,000 nutters that are doing
and
uh,
that's one where the
it
clock
all.
starts
And
ticking to
then, of
the
course,
city.
there's all the people,
That's one where you're supposed
bored
to
people coming out
locate the
and
most
with their
accountable
cameras to
source
view
of
what's
goods and
going on.
services so that
And
everybody
here's a
can do
Mexican
better.
commie
One thing
up,
about the military,
standing
it
up
is
on
a
a
relatively
car. Oh
expensive
boy. Oh, so
resource that
symbolic.
you can bring in. They cost an incredible amount of money.
Oh,
And
he's
from
really
time to time,
fighting the
you
man
need some
there, isn't he?
military to
Oh.
go in and do stuff with a natural
Hermanos.
disaster or civil disturbance or something like that. There was always in the background, they're looking at the cost of the cost to taxpayers for what we're doing. And it's in federal law since 1932 that at some point we need to shift that over. So theoretically, at some point, someone could say, hey, look, you're paying for these federal troops. It's costing a huge amount of money. Why don't you just contract this out to private security or something like that? That could be a discussion. And actually, there have been in recent years where federal troops came in to do things. The Department of Defense has been sued under the U.S. Economy Act for bringing troops in to do
That's right,
stuff
Dad.
that could have been done by a contractor or somebody else at a much lower cost. So that at some point, right now it's an exigent situation, but at some point that law will probably apply.
One thing we do here on Live Now is we play out some of these scenes in real time, and we're just going to raise the audio right now so that we can hear the raw sounds from the scene. As we see at least one protester waving a Palestinian flag. We see an American flag in the background. We've seen a number of Mexican flags. We're going to listen into some of the sounds from the ground as we
An
continue
upside
to
down
see these
American
cars
flag.
burn in downtown LA. Let's listen.
That was like losers. It's the third world, yay! Yay! Everything, let's make everything the third world, oh! what a hellhole. Literally, what a hellhole LA is. Wow. Some more commies posing up on top of a car. Oh, so brave. So brave, especially when they're totally unopposed. They're so courageous. I can't help it. I just don't care if the whole damn downtown of LA burnt down. I could care less. And I bet the commies like Karen Bass that are supposedly running the city, they would like that. Why? Because you get to kick people out and you get to rebuild and you get to get kickbacks and contractor money sent back to you. So just like Malibu, they win. You haven't noticed they're always for chaos. Always for chaos.
To see much of what we've
And
been
you gotta wonder why. It's always a way to make money for these scumbags. Always.
These protesters, they're focusing on these Waymo vehicles. These are the autonomous vehicles that are available in select cities. Hal Kemper sticking by, being generous with his time today. I'm Austin Westfall. We thank everybody for tuning in. We're going to be staying on for the rest of the night, Hal. The plan is to keep eyes on this for as long as we see activity happening in Southern California. What are you going to be watching for in the coming hours?
I'm going to be watching to see if this thing keeps going.
Coming fun.
I'm going to be watching to see if the crowd
Gotta watch see if it keeps going. Yeah, no. Oh, that's so right, Sherlock.
If they've been out there protesting all day,
Chris is gonna keep going. No one's stopping them. They're having a grand old time. Look at this.
They'll get in their cars and go home. One thing I would like to point out, though, is they are sitting. See that guy?
He's having so much fun.
He's sitting in a car with lithium-ion batteries on fire. Two things happening. Number one.
No, he started the fire.
And number two,
boy, this guy is something else.
I don't know if the crowd really understands what they have done setting those cars ablaze because the fumes are so toxic. I would not be surprised if 6 months or a year from now, we start hearing about claims from people who inhaled toxic fumes that may have been associated with this event. That does happen. As you
Zombie county?
A
lot of zombie communists,
and we had a problem with burn pits over in Iraq, and so I'm somewhat attuned to this thing. So there's a lot of things going on there. But I will tell you this: Chief McDonald of LAPD, Sheriff Luna,
lithium flame zombies, brains. I just had brains.
They have been doing this for a very long time.
Burning down Waymo cars starts the zombie apocalypse.
That they're going to be able to leverage their law enforcement resources.
That would be so fitting, wouldn't it? Brains. I must have brains to eat. Waymo was responsible for the zombie apocalypse.
And that's something I'll be watching as well. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some
don't save them.
That come out of this, not because of anything law enforcement did, but because
don't say the a-holes from themselves.
Al, we appreciate your time today. As I said, this is something we'll be watching all night. We appreciate your insight. Take care. Have a good rest of your day.
Yes, no one is stopping them. No one's doing anything about it. So surprise, surprise.
As I said,
they keep going on and on.
To stay on air for the entirety of the night, as long as there are feeds coming into the newsroom. And right now, we've got 2 different vantage points from the ground. We did lose the chopper shot. It's possible that it's going back for fuel.
Do you need fire insurance?
U.S. Northern Command saying in a statement This is a statement
Did you
regarding
know
protection of
your
federal
fire
property
insurance
and
will
personnel
help
in the
you
LA area.
to
They say
uncover
approximately
riots and acts of God?
2,000 California National Guard soldiers have been placed under Title 10 status. That's what Hal and I
Well,
were
that's right. We
discussing
won't be seeing
moments
State
ago. So the
Farm
federal government
commercials or anything
pretty much
in
taking control
California.
of these 2,000 soldiers as we continue to watch some of the destruction from the protests in downtown LA. We're going to take the opportunity
That's
now to listen
stupidity.
in to a little bit of the audio
No
that
cops.
that the cameras on the
No
ground are
cops.
capturing. Let's pull the audio up.
In a very small area in LA. It's basically very performative. This is a tiny area in LA. So, and they're just letting it burn. The cops are doing nothing. So they can make it look like it's so widespread, the outrage, and Trump has to be stopped. So that's really what the story is about. Why they're letting it go. So, and it'll actually start getting crazy tonight. We'll see. So, the sun will be going down in about an hour. Maybe a little more. So, Travis and their stupid signs. You can read them, but they're all retarded. Their chat looks kind of fun over there. Over on Fox, let's see. I can't show. Okay, it doesn't show too much. Lithium batter, black fatigue, idiots unite. Yeah, hot fumes. Yeah. But white liberal saviors. Rest in peace, Saboon. I think Saboon's like a drug in the Philippines. I don't know. LA sucks. Mexico is off the map. Yeah, the chat looks like it's a lot of fun over here. What a shitty city. So peaceful. Yeah, these are peaceful riots. Like I said, this is a tiny area in LA that Karen Bass and New Scum are allowing to burn. Because all you see is this, and everyone assumes it's all over LA, when it's not. It's not all over LA. And it's almost as if they sent those 5 Waymo cars in there to be burned down. So it would be an image for everyone to see. Isn't that weird? The robo-taxis drive right to where the riots are starting, and they park right there and stay there until the rioters burn at each single one of them. As you know, conspiracies aren't real at all. No. Not like this government is run by a bunch of pedophile scum. None of that is true. So, no, they didn't send those Waymo cars in there. There's no way that could have happened. No way at all. The robots are just that dumb. Like I said, it's all performative BS. Just performative for the cameras. Everything is fake and gay nowadays. If anyone that's watching, if you'd like to join chat, I'd love to hear what you have to think. Cause like I said, it looks like the Fox News chat is a lot of fun. If you get a chance, if you get tired of me, that's for sure, go ahead and Fox LA, and you can watch this yourself, and maybe follow along with her chat, cause that's a lot of fun. Oh, they're drumming. They got a drum jerk-off circle going now.
Mexican flags being waved
Damn,
in multiple live
commies.
images.
Commies
We
suck.
don't have any clarity on what those blasts are that you're hearing. More than likely, it's coming from within those electric vehicles. But we've also heard fireworks throughout the course of these protests. We've also heard flashbangs. But we've seen a number of explosions coming from those Waymo
Just
cars
commies blowing their
that
head.
continue to burn
Top.
in the middle of the street.
Oh, there goes
downtown
another
LA.
commie head. Top. There goes another commie head.
We're continuing to listen into the
Nothing
sights,
in there, so no harm was
that
done.
the cameras are capturing down in the heart of the city of Angels, and we'll continue to listen in as we're losing some visibility. I'll just say that it looks like a little more smoke. Not sure if this is just simply a gust of wind blowing some of the fire, blowing some of the smoke from the electric vehicle fires.
No,
But again,
that's
it
just
hasn't
the
been common for us to see
stench from
these
the patchouli
smoke
smelling,
grenades as well,
patchouli
from
stinking
a law
commies out
enforcement
there.
perspective.
They're all out there
So
smoking their
I'm
dope.
going
That's
to
just
continue doing fact-finding
the
behind the scenes
stench
here.
coming
I'll be
off of
back on
them.
the mic
That's
with
what
any
it is.
pertinent updates. In the meantime, we're going to keep
Oh,
listening
God.
to what the cameras are hearing on the ground.
Just how awful. Oh, just how awful. The cars probably, the burning cars probably help mask the awful smell of these disgusting commie protests. Oh, don't even think about it. Don't think about it. It'll make you vomit. Oh. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Somebody finally chatted. Yay. I imagine it reeks, Alex says. Yes, most definitely. Thanks, Alex. Please join in. Stinky, patchouli, smelly, commie bastards. Oh, no. It's the patchouli riots. Well, 2025. Let's put another car. Let's put another electric car to mask the smell. I can't take it any longer. I can't. Oh, look at this badass. Oh, the skull mask. Oh. Little tiny baby arms with a skull mask. Guy. Oh. What does riots are so feminine? You'll be think about it. They are so gay and lame. Alex, I want to know who told them skull masks look cool. They're commies. Don't try to make any sense, Alex. You can't make any sense to a commie. It makes no sense at all. What I liked was the guy. They showed him on his little gay little bicycle, and the little noodle arms. It's so friendly. Noodle arms. Look at badass. Look at me. Gotta take on the man. Down with the man. We're burning these Waymo cars that mysteriously just drove themselves. 5 of them mysteriously just drove themselves to show up at the event, they delivered themselves to be burnt down. The more I think about this, the more suspicious and more obvious that this was probably done on purpose. You know? So, if anyone's ever been to LA, it is very big. Especially if you take the whole county in. It is a very big area. And this is really such a small area. It's such a joke. And of course, this is kind of a stage thing by Bass and Newscomb. It's, you know, you see this picture of 5 burning Waymos. And, oh, the city is burning down. Oh, look at what Trump did. Oh, no. But, so, I think it's staged. I think it's all fake. No, you couldn't pay me enough to go to Cali. Yeah, I agree. Did you notice the cops are nowhere to be seen? Again, this is a tiny area. The cops could move in real easily. And again, this is not anything that Trump should have to deal with. The troops are there to protect the federal personnel, ICE agent, FBI, and the Fed buildings. He's not there to protect LA highways, the 101, which these people were on blocking. He's not there to stop them from burning Waymo cars. Again, it doesn't matter. As long as the feds can keep arresting the scumbag, illegal criminal aliens and get them out of the country, I don't care. But everything is fake and gay, everything's an image for you to see.
Let's briefly do some catch-up for anybody who's just tuning in. We've been watching scenes out of downtown Los Angeles. This is the 3rd day in a row. We've gone wall-to-wall, covering the ongoing protest activity. This all began when a number of immigration enforcement operations were carried out by federal agents in Southern California. It caused a number of Angelenos to take to the streets, protest. We've seen,
okay, Alex.
Cases,
Alex says, I will try and join back later. Next time, I'm gonna finish my beer and cool off for a bit. I subscribed though, so I'll try and be around when I can. Well, thank you so much, Alex. This is kind of just a little experiment. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking your time. Watching some goofy, anime vampire girl on here talking about the riots. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and let's call it quits. I might jump on maybe later as the night goes on, but this was just kind of for fun. I wanted to see. Let me shut this up. I wanted to see if I could figure out how to do this, cause it's fascinating once you learn about it. See, you turn it on and off, and I could make like 4 windows or something, or 3 windows. I could set this all up, and I can have different news sources and we could watch them. Be honest with you, this felt like this was just enough. But it was fun to practice and see how to do it. And any of you can do this too. So if you ever want to, if somebody like me as dumb as me can do this, so could you. So thank you, Alex. Anytime. Aw. You're wonderful. Thank you so much, my dear friend. So, if anyone's ever interested, it took a while to figure out though. I literally had it blasting in my ears. It was trying to control the main sound, so I finally found how to turn on the sound in here, and very easy to do, but not too bright. So let's see, on it off.
Not to
But so I'm just kind of fascinated now. Now that I did my first live stream earlier, I'm like, oh, can I do live news and check it out? So it was just a bit of an experiment. So I hope everyone has a fine evening, and thank you for tuning in. You didn't have to, so I'm so happy you did. Because so many people, when they stream all by themselves. So thank you so much. It was very kind of you to bother putting up with this internet weirdo. So thank you. Have